Did you know that post-secondary youth with disabilities have a harder time getting a job than their peers? Let's help break down the barriers by taking the Youth Leadership Initiative survey at disabilityfoundation.org/YLI. This podcast is brought to you by Reimagine Radio, the online radio station that aims to give you information on disability and music.
Hello, my name is Bryden Veinot, and I'm the Program Coordinator with the Vancouver Adapted Music Society. Today, I'll be interviewing my former Program Coordinator, Graeme Wyman, now Program Manager with the Disability Foundation, overseeing DIGA, Connectra, and VAMS, of course. Let's hop right into it. All right, hey Graeme, what's up, man? How's it going?
I'm doing well, Mr. Bryden. Very, very well. How about yourself?
Good, man. It's interesting times at VAMS, we're kind of changing positions here, eh?
It is. We're kind of, it's an exciting new time for VAMS, and we're moving forward with the program and expanding it in exciting and new ways.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to see what we're gonna do. It's very exciting, maybe a little daunting, some might say, but I think we always rise to the occasion. So we're here to talk about yourself as an artist and your journey through music throughout your life, going through school and then just literally everything. So let's go all the way back.
Okay.
Can you try for me to can you recall your first experience with music?
So, I think I couldn't necessarily equate it to one experience, but I think something that when I was younger was really important to me was back in the 90s. I know, a long time ago, Brian. Basically, when I was a kid, my dad, mom, and I, we always had a little, not a boom box, but a little record player, a little Sony silver record player in the kitchen. And kind of when we were doing dinner at night, when my parents were home from work, we kind of, do dinner, but also have these like dance parties at the same time randomly.
Oh, that's so fun.
And so, it's probably, how at least part of my love for music really grew and expanded. And, my parents being of the generation of like the 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of the music that I listened to was that era. And I just remember whether it was, say, a lot of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young was getting played, a lot of solo Neil Young, a lot of Robbie Robertson from that era.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of, say, like bands like Tears for Fears, the Eurythmics, things like that. So, that's kind of really probably where, music started to become important, or I could at least cognitively remember what my experience was like with music.
Totally.
Or how I was dipping my toes in.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have that, like, at least for myself, like family bonding as music, for me, it was like with my mom a lot.
Right.
And usually I find that's how everyone kind of starts, is their parents or their aunt or uncle or grandparents shows them something and then it just sets them off, eh?
Yeah, and I mean, another big one too for me, and this is when I was 2, and there's actually home videos of this, but the Bare Naked Ladies, the album, I forget the name, it's Gordon, I think the album named Gordon, and it had like the Pepsi symbol on the front.
Oh yeah.
It was like blue, white, and red, and it was like a circular ball, and I just remember like dancing on my aunt's bed, or jumping up and down on my aunt's bed, and she'd be like, "Graeme, what song's this?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's Enid," or "It's this is Grade 9," or "This is Brian Wilson." So that it's exactly family. Family. It's very important when it comes to music and your early experiences.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so you said your first experience kind of consuming music. Now, how about your first experience playing it? What was your first instrument that you learned? And then maybe like go through the succession of what follows and
the different ones. Yeah. Sure. I'll run through all of it.
The list. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So when I was 6, I started on piano. And just to take a little preface, I always wanted to play guitar. I like always wanted to be a guitar player. Like who doesn't?
Mhm.
You know
No,
where I'm
of course,
going,
when I
us
did.
both being guitar players.
Yeah.
So long story short, started with piano, and thank goodness my parents put me in piano, because it's, again, and you can probably test this as well, it's such an easy visual instrument to see and understand theory and music.
Mhm.
At the time, I wasn't as I didn't at least comprehend how like invaluable learning that instrument would be. Um, and so I started with that, and mainly doing the standards, going through the Royal Conservatory, but I wasn't as interested in the piano at that time. And then when I was 10, going into grade 4, we had concert band. And again, I went to the teacher. I was like, okay, I want to play guitar. And my teacher was like, well, there's no guitar in concert band. And I was like, so I decided to pick up the sax, the alto sax. And that was a really cool instrument. Again, very different, being a woodwind, totally different concept compared to a piano. Um, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, one of my favorite sax players is Paul Desmond. All of the Dave Brubeck stuff, the jazz, that was kind of my open corridor into jazz at an earlier age, I guess.
Mhm.
And then when I was 13, I got my first guitar. Oh,
Finally.
I know, I know. I do. I joke with my parents. It's like, imagine if I started at 6, how much better I would be. But no. But the ironic thing was, my first guitar, it was called an elephant guitar, or at least that was the style of it, because it looked like an elephant and it had actually an amp built into it. However, it was right-handed. And for our listeners who don't know, I'm a left-handed player. And so my dad, after a few months, he said, I've got you this guitar, you're not playing it that much. And I was like, well, every time I get on it, it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. There's something off about it. He's like, what do you mean? So I show him, and he's like, okay, like, how would you hold the guitar? And I was like, well, this is more comfortable. And I flip it over backwards. And he's like, oh, well, you're a left-handed guitar player. And I had no idea, like, even I should have known about someone like Jimi Hendrix or anything like that. But, or Paul McCartney, Kurt Cobain, all the people I was listening to, but didn't comprehend that. And it was priceless, because years later, as I mentioned earlier, we're going through home videos, and I'm sitting with, say, like a Fisher Price rake, or there's a photo of me holding an acoustic, and I'm holding it left-handed too. And my dad was like, I should have known back then. So yeah, so essentially when I was 14, started on the guitar, and yeah, that's ever since then been playing the guitar.
Nice.
Then finally,
Wait, did you take that elephant guitar and just flip the strings?
flip it. No,
You got a
no.
new one?
We did, my first guitar was it was a Jackson black guitar. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like the kind of like emulated of a Strat, or the close to being like a Strat.
Yeah.
So that was my first guitar. And I wanted it all black, because that's what David Gilmour had, is an all black guitar at 14. So once that happened, I started getting lessons with my guitar teacher, John Stiver, who's an amazing guitar teacher in the Lower Mainland, who I still keep in touch with today. And yeah, and so it was pretty much guitar 24/7 until I went to Berkeley, and that's when I finally picked up the bass. And the main reason behind playing that was because my background's in music engineering and production, like yourself, and essentially, when we were doing the sessions, the one person who would never show up was the bass player. And so
Oh.
I even started playing bass on a right-handed bass back in college, and then eventually bought my own bass. And so, yeah,
Really?
that's how it started. And basically, Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
how
so
it
weird, man.
started. It
Why
was
would
all
you do
because
that?
people went
Was there no left-handed basses
because
anywhere?
not at Berkeley. At the
Oh,
time, it was all right-handed. Again, left-handed players are only 10% of the population, right?
wow.
So yeah, it
Okay.
was one of those situations where it was a necessity, and it was only for like 2 sessions. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a bass. Like I was in a band, and I was like, okay, if Chris plays bass and guitar, we can easily switch up,
Hmm.
you know. So no, that's how it started, and yeah, basically that's the music history.
Nice. Yeah. That's that's pretty cool. It's funny the speed bumps you hit all over
Well,
the
I just
place. And
laugh. I
yeah.
should I should actually now thank the bass players who didn't show up because I love playing the bass
Oh my
so much
gosh,
now
it's so
too.
much fun. Yeah.
Uh,
So we'll circle back to Berkeley in a second, but
yeah.
I want to just get this one out of the way. I think I sent you this one already and how cliche it is, but top three influences musically. I think you already
Pink
mentioned.
Floyd,
Yeah, there it
number
is.
one. And it's funny, it's like I go back and forth at times where I at least used to, and then probably in my mid 20s, I was like I don't get tired of listening to Pink Floyd.
Mm,
You
hmm.
know, I'd kind of overdo it too much, but I just find there's so much content, like with many other bands or genres, but there's so much content with with Floyd, and just at least listening to David Gilmour as a guitar player and just his tonality and what he brings to the instrument and his choice of notes, there's something there that just it captures me every time.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's you take away all the vocals and they're beautiful songs, and then you add those vocals in, and it's a whole. It enters this new dimension. You know,
Yeah,
they
no, and it's just I
pioneers.
yeah, this is another little side. I know we'll come back to Berkeley, but it got to the point where I did my audition playing Comfortably Numb. My first kind of proficiency that I had to do was time. My second proficiency was Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the first like up until the fifth part.
Yeah.
And then I got to my third guitar teacher, and he's like, "What have you done for your first two songs?" I was like, "Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd." And he's like, "All right, no more Pink Floyd." And I think my face just dropped. I was like, "What?
Well,
You
what
don't
do I
mean
do? I'm
I,
lost.
I know, right? I know. So no, that was funny. But yeah, so Pink Floyd number one.
Yeah.
Um, I guess see, and this is where it gets tricky.
Hmm.
As a producer, I love Radiohead and just the sounds and context that they can bring. And Nigel Godrich, who's the engineer and producer on all their records after or during the bands and after their second one, um, he can just create such lush soundscapes. And then just when you go into the music and chord structure and everything that's behind that group and what everyone brings, it's just fantastic. And I know it's the cliche is, oh, they're the new age Pink Floyd, but I can see the similarities.
I
And
I'd be more than happy to be called that.
yeah, I know,
Are
right?
you
No,
kidding
like
me? That's like the biggest
who's
compliment.
I
Come
know,
on.
I know. And then like even just interesting enough, like Tom York, the lead singer and one of the main writers, is a huge Neil Young fan.
Hmm.
So you can obviously hear those tendencies as well, that kind of like Canadian folk rock influences. So that's kind of another one. And then C3, I'm a person who asks these questions, and it's so difficult when you
Yeah.
only have one more.
I
But I
feel
would
like I could
probably
guess.
okay.
Is
Well,
it
take a guess. I want to hear what you think.
is it Miles?
Yes, it
Yeah, I
is.
knew it, man.
Yeah, I had to pull in some jazz, right? But
Yeah.
no, Miles Davis, and in particular his period from 1969 to 1975,
Hmm.
which is called the Electric Miles period, if I'm correct on that, where he really stopped doing the traditional jazz and started incorporating electric instruments. So that would be like electric piano, electric bass, electric guitar, and the first record that he did was called "In a Silent Way" with these electric instruments, and it was just panned by critics.
Mm.
People were like, "Miles has lost it. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore." And then after that, he comes up with "Bitches Brew," "Down on
Hmm.
the Corner." The Live Evil record is fantastic. He was really pushing it in different ways. And even the one, probably my favorite, is The Legend of Jack Johnson, which is, it's just Miles in a 3-piece, electric guitar, electric bass, and drums. And the reason that he transitioned into that was because he'd heard of Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, all these people, and he's like, well, when I'm Miles, I'm gonna make the greatest rock record ever. And it's stands out to me as an amazing jazz rock record.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you were just saying like how like he was kind of taking a chance, but so was like all of the other biggest acts at the time, right? Like
Right.
that was kind of the whole point of music at that time, was discovering things and trying to like outdo each other, and how weird you
Mhm.
can be almost, hey?
Yeah. And I mean, again, with Miles, because Hendrix used a wah pedal, he actually figured out a way to mic up his trumpet and send it through a wah pedal. So
That's so
he
cool.
had a wah pedal effect on his trumpet.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have to know which one it would have been?
I think it was the
It
Crybaby.
was, yeah.
I think, yeah, pretty standard for back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah. So I
Okay, well
mean,
there you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
I got through. I think that's if I could go on and on, but
Now you
yeah,
have a place to reference your top 3 from, and you don't have to think about it again. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, let's go to Berkeley now. What was kind of inspiration for that? What drove you to go there? And then also like, having finished it, what about this like lifestyle of producer engineer kind of behind the scenes is so appealing to you?
Yeah, I guess so. I started um, recording my own projects when I was 16. I got
Mhm.
my first M box and my first Pro Tools on a Mac, and I only had one mic, but I would just really record jam sessions or like little parts here and there. Um, and yeah, long story short, I applied to Cap College, I applied to UVic, I applied to UBC, and I thought, what the heck? I'll apply to Berkeley. My dad was the one who actually found the school and was like, why don't you give this a shot? And so I was going down all the application processes, and it wasn't probably smart of me, but I actually, because there were certain areas that were so focused, like Cap was jazz, UVic was classical, UBC was classical. I and I wasn't a classically trained guitar player, right, or jazz guitar player. So, and I played some jazz stuff, but on the guitar, but not not probably proficient enough to get into Cap even. I don't know,
Nor was it
but
like your thing
yeah, it
exactly,
was.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just didn't. Something just didn't feel right about it. So I actually pulled all my applications, and I put all my eggs into going to Berkeley, which
Wow.
again wasn't probably the smartest decision. So yeah, no, I had to audition, and our year was actually the first year that you had to audition to get into the school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically they didn't have an audition process at this time and before. And so there was no place you could audition in Vancouver. They do actually hold auditions in Vancouver now. But I went down to the Experience Music Project in Seattle, and you had to sit in a room with a bunch of different people, and they'd call you in, and they ask, okay, play this, can you sight read this, show us these chords, okay, can you improvise? And then you had to play a piece. And the one piece that I obviously was going to play was a Pink Floyd piece,
Mhm.
Comfortably Numb, because it was the one piece that I felt most comfortable around. And so yeah, I got in, and I went over to Boston in September 2008. And yeah, I was there for 4 years, and I knew going in that I wanted to be in the music engineering and production side of things. That there was never any question about that.
Mhm.
Oh shoot, I had a CPU overload.
Oh, no way. It's all
Yeah, I
good.
just didn't. Okay, well, shoot, it happened 4 minutes in on the dot. Should I just start recording from here?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. I
No,
should
it's
have
all good.
checked
That's why
that.
we have like
Four
4
going or
different
three.
backups going at the same time.
Exactly. All right.
I
I'll
almost
do
want to
another
leave that
clap.
in as the comedy piece of the
You could.
episode.
You could. Oh, my
and
engineering skill.
and clap.
Good. Um,
Oh, that's funny.
so, all right, going back. No, now my train of thought's off. But yeah, we'll probably just use the iRig, I think.
Yeah,
That's
just go
the easiest way.
from you were playing Comfortably Numb.
Yeah. So, comfortably numb, got in, but no. When I went there, I knew that I was going to do, or I at least was going to try out for the music engineering and production program. And I mean, Berkeley, it's a very unique school. It's contemporary music. It's not just jazz and classically focused. It's really not classically. It's more jazz. And yeah, I'm getting CPU overloads again.
Really?
Okay.
Okay, it's
Yeah, I'm
fine.
not.
We'll just iRig
Yeah.
it.
Um. So yeah, long story short, after getting there, I had 2 semesters where the unique part about Berkeley is that everyone has to take 2 years of basically the same courses. So you come out with a very well-rounded general knowledge of music, whether that's taking, your harmony, ear training, counterpoint, tonal harmony, arrangement. There was certain courses that you just had to take. So that was great, but you were allowed to declare your major after the second semester. And so I went for music engineering production. And I remember at the time, 300 students had applied for the major, and they only were accepting 60.
Oh, wow.
And the school at that time was about 4,000 people. So, long story short, I got in, and it was the best. Like, it was a life-changing experience over there. And to go back to your question around why being behind the scenes, I think it just gave you different creative freedom, a really different type of creative expression where you're able to, again, take something. And this is the one thing I love about recorded music is you're taking an idea, essentially. Like, you can perform a piece of music, but once that's performance done, you can't take that home with you. With recording, it actually makes music physical, and it's taking an idea that from nothing and creating something physical. So
Totally.
that was something that I thought was really powerful around recording.
Yeah, and like manipulating it and
After the fact, mixing
totally.
is a whole other
Yeah.
level. And
Oh.
yeah, and I think that's why
Yeah.
Pink Floyd and
Radiohead.
Radiohead, like they like would create such lush soundscapes. So I'd always, we're both music nerds in that
Oh, yeah.
instance. It's like go down that rabbit hole, like, oh, what was that reverb on this particular part? And like, oh, that delay here,
Yeah.
where I'm going.
You're almost, as like a mixing engineer, you almost become part of the band in a way. Like your stamp is on the song, they're
Yep.
playing these instruments and you're recording them however you want, but you're going to change how they sound and you kind of have influence on how other people sound.
I mean, to give a perfect example, why do you think George Martin's called the fifth Beatle? It's because without Martin,
there's no Beatles. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, and I mean, the other amazing portion was being able to capture so many brilliant musicians at Berkeley.
Yeah,
So
I want
that was
to.
something.
What was that?
No,
Oh,
nothing.
you
Can
good?
you hear me?
Yep. All good.
Okay.
Okay, so going kind of onto that, recording people at Berkeley. While you're there, like programs like this, like the one I did at Nimbus, you have to do projects of either singles, multiple songs, mixes of songs that already exist, whole plethora of things that test your skills as a engineer. But I'm curious, what was your favorite project? Kind of why, and kind of what did you learn from it too? That maybe wasn't like directly taught from Berkeley. You kind of had to discover it for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'd like to answer this in two questions.
Okay.
Or two parts rather. Now, can you hear a weird thing on my vocals? Can you hear something weird going through my vocals?
No.
Okay, cool.
You're
Because I'm hearing something like stuff. Just one.
Oh.
Yeah. Just 1 sec. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Okay.
2 secs.
Yeah.
Let's see if that's any. No, okay. Well, maybe I'm just hearing it.
Oh,
Um. So yeah, long story short, um, probably my favorite project. This one of my favorite projects was around sound design. And this isn't necessarily music, but we had to take one course. It was called 421, and it was essentially um, you got a clip of a movie, 5 minutes of a movie, and you just got the visual. So you had to design everything: the ADR, the Foley, the music, the sound design, and this is kind of the second to last course that you take in the engineering program. And when you work with artists, it's great. We're in a service industry in this way, right? But this aspect was really unique because it gave you such creative freedom in the sense of, as long as you get the sound or you get something close, or you're trying to figure out how someone can just get lost in the sound design of a film, doesn't matter what you use. So that was a really fun, creative experience with the engineering production that I had no idea I would enjoy so much.
hmm.
And
Do you remember what film clip it was?
yes, I do. I still have it. It's
Oh,
a scene from The Departed.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the scene where um, DiCaprio's up on the roof and he's meeting Martin Sheen, and then the gangsters come and Martin Sheen gets thrown off
Oh, yeah.
the roof.
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, the sound of Martin Sheen hitting the ground, I took a piece of meat and threw it on the ground, and then a watermelon and threw it on the ground, and that was the sound. It worked,
Oh, that's
you know.
amazing.
Yeah, so that was like pretty enjoyable and fun to record.
Yeah.
And like, that, like, the sound that was the hardest is when Leonardo DiCaprio was running down the fire escape. And we did field recording with the Zoom. I tried all these different things, and it was the last sound that I recorded. And what I ended up doing was taking a metal music stand, and just putting my shoes on top of it. And that was the sound,
Oh, yeah. That
right?
totally
It
makes
works.
sense. Yeah. It has
Yeah,
that like
so
rattliness to it a little bit, but
exactly. It kind of
yeah. Yeah.
clangs a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, but it took, like, we tried so many, or I tried so many different things, but it finally worked.
I can just imagine you and your friends running around Boston trying to find fire escapes and running
Oh,
around on them.
in the area we lived, it was pretty easy to get to roofs and pretty easy to get on the fire escapes.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people were concerned in Alston about people on the roofs and fire escapes.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
that was funny. Um, and yeah, so that was really great. But probably the other project that I really enjoyed was, and this was strictly music, but I have a really good friend, one of my best friends from Berkeley, Chris Putt, and we did his record, the Keystone EP, and I helped engineer, produce, and play on it. And this was a funny one. We did my final project, and then I had finished school, but I still had 6 months on my visa, so I could stay in the States. And I was like, I'm not even done my lease, so might as well just kind of ride this out. And so I would go in and help my other, like, really good friend, or other best friend, Danny. And we were kind of engineering partners throughout the whole Berkeley experience.
Hmm.
Just play and like help him engineer. And we do some of the stuff would be the Radiohead stuff where like he's writing the faders and I'm playing with the delays as it's going down.
Yeah.
And we like, okay, no, that was close, but let's do it again. So it was a very like cool partnership in that aspect. But that record is a lot of fun for me, just to even re-listen to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun like going back and seeing what you were into at that time, or remembering what tricks you used to use, and the tricks that you used too many times that you had to
Oh.
let go of and try and
Yes.
move past. And
yeah, no, it's funny. It's even like when you catch yourself today doing stuff, or even you and I were recently talking, and some of the stuff I was telling you about mixing were things that I easily used a bunch. Like,
Yeah.
even to give an example, the pre-fader.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that our listeners won't really get what we're talking about.
Maybe a few here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
If you want to learn something, come over to VAMS and maybe we can tell you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bryden can definitely teach you what we're talking about.
Yeah. Um, but okay, so you finished Berkeley,
Mhm.
and then there was some trips and some jobs here and there. What was kind of the life before VAMS?
Yeah, the life before VAMS was I came back to Vancouver in 2014. I went and did my master's in global entertainment and music business, and then I came back and I was just looking for work for about 3 months. And long story short, I worked in an entertainment agency, and it just wasn't for me.
Mhm.
I don't want to really get into it because it wasn't a fun experience, but it's the first job I've ever quit. And
Yeah.
I was just after 8 months, I think I'd given it a good shot, and I was just like, I'm not happy here. But I was or at the same time concurrently working at VAMS part time,
Okay.
and that was actually through the Neil Squire program. And essentially, they'd put me in touch with VAMS. I had started there,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was a much better fit for me.
Totally. I mean, the whole time at the entertainment place, you didn't get to pick up a guitar once, probably,
No,
right? No,
no, not at all. It's
no.
all routing tours and social media
You got to be
and
close to them. You could almost
yes.
touch them, but
Oh
no.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no,
I
it
would
was
quit that
very much
too.
office work. Yeah.
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 Okay, so then what was VAMS like when you first started?
So at this point in VAMS, which was back in 2014, March 14th, 2014 was my
Be-
first day at VAMS.
Beautiful.
I know. It's funny the little things I remember.
Yeah.
But no, we were upstairs on the first floor. At that point, I was only working 12 hours a week. And yeah, I just started up with lessons. And luckily I filled up in no time flat. So 12 hours for 12 weeks. And then after that, they actually hired me. The Disability Foundation hired me. And then over the next year or so, I slowly became the program. Well, it wasn't an official title, but I essentially became the
The
program
de
coordinator.
facto, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, of VAMS. And then,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, to make a long story short, um, in 2019, we took the program from 300 hours a year to 1,100 hours a year.
Oh, that's it, hey? Yeah.
And that's not including shows and practices and
Yeah.
other things that were definitely spread in there. So no, it was pretty fantastic to see it grow in that way. And obviously there's a need for it.
And
And
I would like
again,
to just interject and say that you were doing this with who?
no
No
one.
one, right? Yeah.
No, no. I mean, yeah, no.
It's amazing. It's
Definitely when
amazing, man.
Ruby and Dave. Well, no, I wouldn't say no one. Like Dave was a great support.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there was support, but definitely really the structure changed when Ruby, our previous executive director, and David Fong, uh, came in and again gave structure to VAMS. I've said this to David before. It felt like VAMS was a satellite society
Hmm.
before. Like I would come into the office twice a year,
Oh, yeah.
the head office. And so no, it really getting that structure, and it helped the program grow. And no, it was also a really meaningful experience because I myself having a disability, um, just working with people at the end of the day that we all want the same outcome is to be treated normal and to be able to play music
Hmm.
and get our like whatever, whether it's just learning an instrument versus recording or performing.
Hmm.
It really it's one of those things that's just an invaluable experience that I never had thought when I was 18 going to Boston.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's it's such a niche, cool position to be in. I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for this position, but yourself, like, you have such a cool perspective as someone with a disability. I mean, it
Mhm.
it it affects you in certain ways, but again, like, you can do all the same stuff as every other musician, right? Like, it's no different. So I
Yeah.
kind of want you to go on that a little bit more. So like, how did your experiences as a musician or just a person with a disability affect how you operated at VAMS?
I think part of the unique thing was that I think I can I first and foremost cannot understand everyone's disability. I would never speak on behalf of anyone else's disability, but I think I could, to a certain degree, can understand about certain limitations and things like that. But again, like another beautiful thing about the program is we have clients who physically can't hold an instrument, are nonverbal, but can direct me or someone like yourself to create music. Like again, when you think of music, most people instantly think, oh, it's an instrument or you're playing or you're doing something in that fashion. But I work with clients where they're the producer and I'm the session
Yeah,
musician
musical
playing, right?
conduit of sorts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So, and I've created some beautiful, really fun pieces with people
yeah.
that way. And it's also it's given me a better insight into what accessibility means
Hmm.
in the sense of when it comes down to music and what even though there may be limitations, doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't able to play or do things.
No, totally. I mean, we'll talk about this next week when we inevitably talk about me,
I know.
but
When we do
yeah,
the inverse.
but the whole thing has just completely opened my eyes to just accessibility issues and
Hmm.
everything on in this sector. It was a total like spot that I didn't even consider as much when I was
Hmm.
kind of just coasting through life doing my own thing, and
Yeah.
now that I'm here, it's realizing really how important it is.
Yeah, and I think again I got to give a shout out to Sam Sullivan and Dave Symington who started VAMS, and it's just without them back in the '80s, like this would have never like this would not have happened without their drive,
Totally.
and the fact that they saw like that this is something important that they were passionate about and that they pushed through and forward, and and here we are today.
Totally. I mean, I'd like to quickly plug the fact that we have a couple podcasts going over
Hmm.
kind of the inception and creation of VAMS with Sam and Dave.
Yeah.
So go check those out on our SoundCloud page.
Yeah, SoundCloud is the very first artist feature, and then giving a plug to your podcast,
Oh, well.
Discover Stories, which if you really want to hear about Sam's journey outside of the music and just about his life and even about the start of the Disability Foundation, uh, I'm not exactly sure what episode it is,
Oh,
but
I think it's actually the second episode.
second, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
second or third, but yeah, it's on our SoundCloud, but that one was a fascinating one as well.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. So, all right, here we go. Final question, kind of a
Ooh,
higher level,
home
more,
stretch.
yeah. Yeah. So, what has been your biggest takeaway from your years as the program coordinator at VAMS?
I, I feel I touched on it a little earlier, but just really, and I mean, it's the mantra of the Disability Foundation, but reimagine what is possible. But partially, you know, it's sorry,
No,
you'll
yeah,
have
take
to
your
edit
time.
this.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'll clap. I had my thought and then I went to the reimagine thing.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you cannot have a creative outlet. And VAMS is there to help support that creative outlet. And again, I think it shows in the numbers of how the program grew. And it's something I'm incredibly proud of with the help of people who've been there along the way, but there is a need for this. That's the one thing. Like the program isn't growing at that rate if there wasn't a need. So that is that's just a really special thing. And if I've helped someone have that creative outlet in some little way, that's that's the beautiful thing about this job.
Yeah, man. It's how can you create a version of you dancing on the bed listening to Bare Naked Ladies for
Yeah,
someone else, right?
right,
It's
exactly.
it's those moments, they're precious and unforgettable, and
And
the
creating
I,
that spark,
yeah,
you
man,
know.
it's
Yeah.
just
And
amazing. Well, Thanks, man. That was really cool.
Cultivate that.
What was that?
Yeah, I know. Oh, I said, and like help cultivating that.
Yeah. No, exactly. Not just stopping it right there.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing it grow, right?
Yeah. Oh, he's going to take my job one day. No, don't stop, man. But anyway,
right.
yeah, no, that was really cool, man. I definitely learned some new things. I feel like, I mean, definitely heard some things I knew already, like I guessed the miles, but
of course. I mean, it's a little obvious.
Yeah.
Talking to me, I think if you talk to me, Miles, about music, Miles comes up pretty frequently.
Oh yeah, for sure. But anyways, yeah, no, thanks, man, and I guess we'll talk next week for my turn.
That sounds great, man. No, thank you for having me.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, see you at work.
Yes, exactly. See you online.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Bryden. This podcast is brought to you by Reimagine Radio, the online radio station that aims to give you information on disability and music.